friends! Today I'm going to talk about what a cover stitch machine is and why it is useful. This is my cover stitch machine. It is a Brother CV3550. I chose this one because it is, as far as I could find, the only tabletop cover stitch machine that has this special arm for a decorative stitch. The 3440 is threaded the same way but lacks the special arm, so this video will work for you too if you have that machine. Let me first talk about why we use the cover stitch machine. The cover stitch machine makes 2 or 3 rows of parallel stitching with a ladder looking stitch on the underside. This is great for sealing the hems of knitwear and other stretchy fabrics. Are you wearing a t-shirt right now? How about leggings? If you bought these at a store, I guarantee they are cover stitched in the hem. While it is possible to get away with a zigzag stitch in some, but not all, circumstances, the cover stitch is essential for creating a professional look. I want to hem this tank top, so I need to switch to white thread. So I'm going to show you how to change the thread on the cover stitch machine. So obviously if you have it set up the way that you want it already, then you would just cut off the old thread, tie on the new one and pull them through. That's the easiest way to do it. But what if you don't have any thread on it right now? Or what if it's threaded improperly? You do need to learn how. And I really, really like that my machine has these idiot-proof arrows and diagrams. Like, this one is for the underside. This one is for the top decorative. This one is for the right needle, the middle needle, and the left needle. I have mine currently set up with the 2 needles in position 1 and position 3. I think I would like a narrower hem, so I'm going to move my position 1 into position 2 before I thread the machine. So let's do that. I'm just going to pull this thread out of that needle. I'm going to pull the thread out of the other needle too, just because it's going to have to come out anyway. So these are little teeny tiny hex screws. I'm not going to unscrew it all the way. I don't want to lose my screws. I'm just going to move it over into the middle one. And I have to loosen up this screw in order to get it in, and make sure that the eye is facing forwards with the groove and pushed up as far as it can go. I think this machine is also pretty idiot proof because the needles, being universal needles, are flat on the back, so you really can't put them in backwards. Pull out all the threads. Since I'm using the underside and the position 2 and position 3, I will be sticking my threads on these spindles. I'm going to start by threading the underside. And it goes through, I'm not convinced it matters which one it goes through if you're just using one thread. Then it will come down here, go through this eyelet and this tensioner, then through the tension wheel. From there, it will go down. Time to open up the machine. It will come down through here. More idiot-proof arrows. I love that there's a diagram here. I just freaking love it. So it'll come through that hook, then around this little piece of wire, then through this hook, which I like that it's a spiral hook, so I can just like not let go of the end and just like pull it through, as opposed to having to like thread a hole that I can't really see. This one, however, it does have to go through this one, which is a hole, and my thread is too fluffy. I need to cut the end off. And then it goes through this hook. Why don't I give you a closer up? Okay, so like I said, it comes down through here, under that hook, over that one, through that hole there, and through this hook. Now we move on to the lower looper. This button here, push and pull down. It will release this open, so it's much, much easier to thread. And there's just a little hook here, and then it goes through this hole. And what I do after that is I like pull it out here. Well, okay, I need to release this back in. And I shut that and I leave this out, this thread. I leave the thread out of the machine. Now we move on to the needles. Needle position 3. Tension loop, I guess you would call it. I'm not really sure if it's called a loop. Anyways, after that, it comes down through here. Lovely idiot-proof arrows. Goes underneath this metal plate thing, around this hook, and then this little piece of metal here. Needle position 2 and 3 go on this side. Needle position 1 goes on this side. And this little spring tensioner here. 1, 2, and 3. Okay? I'll get closer. Holds the threads in place. Okay, slot 1, slot 2, slot 3. Got it? Then it goes around this hook, and finally through the eye of the needle. Thread, needle position 2. Is done almost identical, but instead it goes through needle position 2, tensioners. And since it's needle position 2, it still goes on the same side and into needle position 2 here. Needle position 2 and needle position 3. Slowly draw the needle down to pull up a loop. The direction that the hand crank wheel spins is the opposite direction as my other two machines. Old t-shirt to do a test. This lever here raises and lowers the foot. I hold down the threads because I think it sews better if they don't get loops on the underside. By which I mean, I think it works better when it doesn't have a bird's nest on the underside. That's why I hold the threads. Yeah, my machine sounds like a tank, but from what I read on the internet, that's normal for this machine. I guess it's got a lot of power behind it or something. Is it sewing the way we want it to? Okay, we got the stitches on the top. What about on the bottom? There's one skipped stitch. I think my tension on the underside is a little too tight, so I'm going to go over to this tension wheel and I'm going to loosen it a little bit. And we'll try again. Alright, no skipped stitches. I like to just lift the foot, make sure the needles are out, and just pull the whole thing out. It pulls the threads through the needles, but like from the underside, and I personally like this. I think that it helps lock it back here so that it doesn't come undone, but it also means that after every one I have to pull out the extra threads. The other thing that you can do is do a stitch backwards, and that will supposedly release the threads, but if you do that, you do have to pull them to the back and tie a knot. So whatever works for you. In fact, I'll demonstrate that after I'm done with the tank top. I don't have one of those attachments for doing perfectly measured hems, so I just put pins in it because frankly I would have to buy a different attachment for every size hem, and I don't want to do that because I change it up frequently. I just put pins in it, and I make sure that the heads of the pins are sticking away from the fold of the fabric, and that is so that I can pull them out before they get into the machine. So what I'm doing now is I'm just pinning the hem up so that I can make sure that it's nice and even. I am doing a 3/4 inch hem for this particular shirt. Now it's finally time to sew the hem. Okay, so my favorite place to start is like the back, but like off to the side, not the center back. Basically I want the like least noticeable place to put it. So definitely not center front, since the ends of the cover stitching tend to be where the most mistakes happen. So I like to line up the edge with the middle ridge, middle like piece of metal in there. Put the needles down, make sure the foot is down, and start sewing. And pull the pin out before you get to it. Like one pin probably isn't going to hurt your machine too much, but like over time they can chew up the feed dogs and whatnot, and then you have to replace them, otherwise they start chewing up your fabric. It does have this sort of like measurement chart on here, but I haven't yet been able to figure out what exactly it means, because like the what is this, 1 inch is all the way out here, which is like more than an inch from the folded over edge of the fabric. So like it's not a 1 inch hem if you use the 1 inch line. It doesn't make any sense to me. Are approaching the beginning again. So before I get there, I'm just going to trim off these threads so they're not in the way. And when I get here, I'm going to stitch like just a little bit past the beginning so it does overlap a little bit. And then, as I said, I would demonstrate the stitching backwards to release the threads. So use the hand crank wheel to go the opposite direction of the stitching. When you come back here, release the foot, pull out, but absolutely must pinch the threads between your fingers when you pull, otherwise you could unravel. Cut. Okay, here on the back side, find the loop. If you have a tiny crochet hook, that's very helpful. And pull that through. This will help lock these stitches so they can't come undone. Yep, pull it through the loops and tug on it to make sure that it's not coming undone, and then you can cut them off. And what should hopefully be the last step is to go through the inside and check to make sure that you don't have any parts where you didn't catch the fabric or big nests, knots, or whatever. And if you don't have any of that, then you're done. And now, time for some springtime activity.